The infinity loop is the tools of communication that heals and glues society back together. Our podcast is about disruption. We disturb the system that says it's normal and okay to communicate in the old, tired, ineffective, and unintelligent ways. There's a cynical belief rooted in so many of us in which we've told ourselves we can't help how we think or behave because our brains are so wired to react from low-level consciousness that's habitual and automatic. We're coming from our egos where they're running the show and not the infinity loop, where the ego is in a helpful place as a healthy sense of self, so it can help us be in our connected, abundant selves. We're saying by intentionally stepping into the infinity loop, we can affect every interaction we have and change the world. The Infinity Loop Group podcast is going to be about moving from the either-or to both-and way of thinking, where we transcend and include, as Ken Wilber teaches, in which we transcend the limitations of the old masculine and old feminine, but include what is healthy and helpful. What will emerge is a new, balanced, and integrated masculinity and femininity. The time has come where the divine feminine way of being is going to arise. We must learn from it as we let our old ways die, so a new human is resurrected and transfigured. That new human will truly change the world. This podcast is also about having a growth mindset, which hungers to love well while practicing elegant and intelligent self-care. We face our wounds, egos, and shadows in preparation to give this life everything we've got to make the world more connected and beautiful, because we're more connected and beautiful.
Welcome to the Infinity Loop Group podcast. I'm Riley Burns.
I'm Krista Vorse.
We're going to dive in where we left off last with making peace with our inner landscape. Spiritual healing occurs as we learn to live in an abiding peace in the presence of all that life might bring. James Finley.
That is such a good quote. Can you just say that again?
Spiritual healing occurs as we learn to live in an abiding peace in the presence of all that life might bring. To me, that is taking life on life's terms, living in reality, not being delusional with what's going on, but not being emotionally tormented by the good or the bad, right? Because there is something of a sense of lack of control when you are always manipulated on what's going on in the world, because there's always going to be things going on in the world, but how do you have that emotional sobriety, which I see as that abiding peace?
And I love that he used the term spiritual healing. Wow, spiritual healing. When you learn to live, basically, with peace with all that comes at you in the world.
Well, it's like the walking meditation, right? Anyone can meditate when it's quiet, but can you meditate when the world's screaming around you?
Mm-hmm. Making peace with our inner landscape. That's it, man. In spring 2017, I was able to go to another level with my inner stillness. I've been graced with a power in this stillness. It may just be the coolest thing ever. I just want to have a moment with that, as we were talking earlier before the podcast about how life is hard. And we're going through things in the world right now that are very hard and jostling, where we're like saying, we're in this world, but not of this world. and seeing things differently than so much of how we're being, indoctrinated by media to see things. And I just want to celebrate then you were saying, and the contrast with that, right? The paradox with that is you've never felt more abundance internally. And I would say the same thing about my life too. I've never felt like I've liked myself because I'm in integrity and that I'm just having a greater capacity to love. And that makes life worth living. But to read this line again and just think like, yeah, inner stillness, what a cool thing to have, even if everything is stripped from us. What a great skill to have.
Amen.
By humbly accepting life as life is, by living in peace with the ordinary, that's the opposite of what's exciting on social media, right?
Yeah.
That is the ordinary, living with the ordinary. By staying in silence and simplicity as much as possible, we go deeper. I noticed my sturdiness increasing as I remained still more often, internally and externally still when I'm able. I felt I was moving in slow motion. We do the work on ourselves, but then it's done to us. It's all grace. But we keep showing up. It's an okayness. All is well at the deepest level with life. Emotional sobriety gives us this gift. Since I first wrote this, I've been given the gift of non-resistance to what is. I don't need things to be any other than this moment. Just this month, now late November, this is in 17. I guess I was then editing it by November. I'm aware I understand what it means to live surrendered to divine providence. I don't have that capacity all the time, but I know what it feels like, and it's far better than wanting to flee what is.
Yeah, I mean, the importance of feeling our emotions and not running to the comfort. So much of our society right now is about comfort. And it's so funny, as we've created the most amount of comforts in human history
and convenience,
we are the most uncomfortable we've ever been in society, right? There's more people that have this anxiety and depression than ever recorded, yet we have all these things. And I think it's because we've lost the skill of inner stillness, because there is so many things to distract you, and because there is this sense of chasing happiness, of, get over the sadness, instead of sitting with the sadness to acknowledge what the sadness is telling you about your life. Instead, it's like, no, get over it. Let's get happy again. Do what fills that hole up, and you never really sit with it. And then you never really grieve properly, or you never really process it properly. And I think through the process, that's where the lesson is. So if we don't learn the lessons from our hardships, what's the value of those hardships, right? It's about the lessons. And we're choosing comfort instead of the lesson. At least that's how it rings in my head.
And then I'm just thinking about Thomas Merton, the great contemplative, who said, the true self, which can only be found in the present moment, is innately, he called it happy, because it's just what is. It's like a state of connected to the abundance of this moment.
Well, I would say from my experience, the more present I am, it's beyond happiness, it's bliss. Because if I'm present even in my sadness, I don't become happy, but I become blissful because it becomes a understanding that even in my sadness and pain, I am not my sadness and pain, but I can feel it and not identify with it and be in the moment, in the silence, and go, well, what is this trying to teach me about me?
And I would say of showing up in celebration of this one life we've been given, which we've talked about before, right? This is my human experience. I don't need to flee it. This is my life. And we talked about on a previous podcast.
And
It's
how
like,
lucky you are to live that life.
to live that life. This is the gift, to live this life and to be like the eagle vision of when we pass over our lives. At the end of our lives, we're going to see the beauty. We're going to see the love that was there.
Well, wouldn't you, if you started viewing your pain and suffering and troubles as blessings and gifts and sitting in the stillness, you wouldn't want to run away from them anymore, right? You no longer feel the desire to flee, and you embrace the stillness because you understand that this is a gift to be a part of your life. You know, I know that's hard to accept in the moment sometimes, and that's something I'm, really saying it now for myself, of understanding that the hardships I'm dealing with are a gift, and I need to embrace that.
Yeah, it's a gift, and it's agony. Like, I would never tell someone who lost someone that it's a gift. It's both agony, and it's the gift of life, and it's do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, totally. I mean, to me though, sadly, the loss of one is an opportunity to remember all the wonderful times you had with that person.
Yeah.
Right? There is the loss to have another form of a gift, to now get to have a second look at all those experiences with someone.
Yeah, or you see life differently, of how you cherish every single moment. Oh, it's so true. It's so true. I'm thinking about how much actual inner stillness, this is just occurring to me right now, I've probably always had my whole life, ever since I was really little. And I realized that's probably contributed to my ability to see so many visions, because I could just drop into this like slow motion, seeing another realm. Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. Where are we on this? Okay. I still acknowledge what isn't aligned with my values or vision. We were just talking about surrendering to what is. But I move toward a sweet spot in peace.
Right? So you can accept things for what they are, not judge them, but also protect and have healthy boundaries, and knowing that that's not something you need in your life.
Yeah. So I would say, like, I've heard some podcasters basically bashing being too much into the present moment, because, like, you'd get complacent, or you need to be visioning out there. But it's like, no, I think, and Deepak Chopra would say this, it's like, no, you can be in the present moment and see the both and, and that's something I want to change for my future, but it's coming from this peace, right? It can actually be in the present moment that you are seeing both.
Well, from my experience, the more you're in the present moment, the more your future plans happen naturally.
Yeah.
Right? It's because by being in the moment, you are putting your best foot forward, because you are being more present instead of trying to plan something. You just are in the moment, and something usually even more beautiful than you could have planned occurs.
And I would say that's can be qualities of the divine feminine too. That is that ability to just in peace draw things, right?
Yeah.
To you. I am peace. There's such a stillness as we move past the watcher to being the watcher of the watcher. So the watcher is the person that can stand back in the observer, witness consciousness, and see the person suffering, see that, and watch it and feel it, but also know it is not over identified with those feelings, which is a great thing that James Finley teaches. It's we don't identify with our feelings. We can have our feelings, but we don't become our feelings. We have these feelings, but they are not the whole story of who we are. We are also something, an essence that is watching us have these feelings, right? That's the watcher. And then Deepak teaches this great thing where you then become the watcher of the watcher. So it's like you even go back further into your essence. And you are, that ego vision, and you're not bypassing your emotions. You're not spiritually bypassing. You're having both. But you're going, I am not this small little story. I am essence, right? And I am love that can even watch myself watching myself. Isn't that wild? You really are in your oneness, of the oneness consciousness of the whole world. So that's like how you can even help people titrate some of their grief and pain. They can feel that, and they can know that they are something more than just their grief and pain.
To me, it's honoring the emotions without like indulging them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's holding this balance of, yes, I am feeling this thing, but I'm not going to feed this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So interesting. It's a power source, 100% alive, present to respond to whatever emerges. It's my most embodied, smart brain, peaceful being. I don't want to leave home without her. I've needed her with me all my life, so now that I've found her, I'm addicted to whatever is needed to keep her around. And if that means sitting in the emptiness, the blah, to resist to fix the moment, I'll choose inner stillness to court her to come around more often until she agrees to cohabitate with me. And it is emptiness. It's an emptiness when we are not running to fix it. It's space. It's a spaciousness. It's where emptiness does not mean you're an empty person. It's empty of the ego mind, of the identifying with the racing thoughts.
Like the emptiness of moving on to the next thing, right? It's the always, like you said, the fleeing. So the emptiness is letting go that fleeing energy.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking about something that I am hard on myself for. I struggle because I do this actually so much, and so much of my life, what I was doing was walking meditation, of being a meditator. And it's a different way of being. What I maybe not accomplish as much out in the world sometimes. Sometimes I'm like super accomplishing, right? Mm-hmm. But other times it's really, I'm walking through life in a walking meditation of doing my spiritual work.
Finding your balance.
Yeah, finding the balance. I choose not to run for community or connection with another human being. I heard someone say, well, if you're lonely, that's a sign you're supposed to call somebody. And they would go, no, it's actually, the mystics would say that's, the loneliness can be transformed into solitude. It's going through a doorway. I would say it's not always a sign that you need community in another person. Sometimes it's sitting with that and going to the great love affair and the deeper work with your soul and being able to tolerate sitting in that, right?
Yeah.
I just stayed in my inner stillness that's as sturdy as a redwood tree and hung in the quiet of that private place. What happened next was an intimacy with myself and the sacredness of my own journey that became instantly full of mystery and sweetness and love. It's the awareness of being held by love in each and every moment. Had I gone for the positive fix, I would have missed the unique expression of, quote, God giving herself to me as my life, end quote. That's something James Finley says. Oh, in that moment, as James Finley says, God giving herself to me as my life. Yeah. And I remember exactly where I was. I was by the dishwasher. And I remember tolerating this blah moment and just like, whoa. And then it just like went to this fullness and going, that's it. I tolerated all of that emptiness.
For me, it's like a David Meltzer talks about finding the enjoyment in the monotony. And to me, it's when I truly found joy in taking out the trash. It's a similar one he had said, and I found my ability to put my brain in that space of going, oh, think of how peaceful it is, those few seconds of just getting outside for a second or two. And it's just like, how can I find gratitude in the most basic things?
In the gift of life, in life itself.
Yeah.
In life itself. I found that to go through the drop of aloneness and emptiness is worth the fall. Until I die, I want to use my sales skills to sell the value of the surrender to the drop. It's the awareness that we're sturdy and powerful in our inner stillness because we become the watcher of all the things that float down the river of our stories that aren't even us. In that inner stillness we experience we're bigger than we thought we were and beyond the power of our moments. When we're present in the now, we're brought into happiness beyond what momentary emotional discomfort we're experiencing, like you said. Our true selves live in the spaciousness. The intimacy I had with myself came shortly after I allowed the drop into the blah, the quiet, the quote-unquote not exciting thing. It became the most exciting thing. In many ways, society has taught us to run from our blah moments and that we should be scared of them.
To me, it's when you say it's the most exciting thing, I think of, well, yeah, because the present moment is the only thing. Mm-hmm. So it's the
only thing that's real.
Right, and so there is no actual blah moments because they're all beautiful, exciting moments. And to me, that's what really becomes so exciting and so fulfilling in life because you are tapped in all the time. Mm-hmm. And it's, you embrace
that's embracing life.
Yeah.
It's, I will talk about, I'm sure in this many years of this podcast, but how I have what I call a psychedelic brain, and the times that I've actually taken psychedelics, I'm like, oh, this is what it's like to be a mystic.
I would quote her saying, this is fairy vision, and I've always had fairy vision. That would be her exact
That's what
quote.
I said. Oh, this is fairy vision. Yeah, I'd always had fairy vision. But it's that exciting thing where it's like, whoa, like it is like light shooting out of that plant. Because if you go really slow, everything becomes so alive and vibrant when you're that present to the bird chirping and it's like being on drugs.
Well, it's like the podcast we were listening to of how we're only seeing 5% of reality.
Oh, so good. I'm so glad you're bringing that up.
And so,
because the way our eyes are.
Right. And so imagine how much more you're taking in when you're just being present in the moment. Because most of the time we're not even taking in that full 5%, And so I think too, when we're in that moment and we're in the presence, more than 5% opens up to us. And that is where this fairy vision, this psychedelic view, these visions, because you are tapping into more than just the basic biology of the human being. You are tapping into the spiritual soul of us, which has so much more at its fingertips. It's just sometimes hindered by this container.
So that's that's so good. So that's like the awareness piece, right? Which is a chapter, awareness, which I take right from Deepak Chopra's teaching. So it's like,
well, it's
yeah,
the more we are aware, the more perspective we have, whether it's visual, physical, emotional, and that all comes from being present.
And that's the watcher, right? Because we're able to step back. And so, of course, you're going to have a wider and wider vision. You're going to go, whoa. Because there's no ego mind to tell you what you know, what you think, what you see, because it's in this curiosity, becoming as a little child of what don't I know. And then that's where the real intelligence drops in.
Okay, so I have a question then. So for being the watcher, how is being the watcher being present? Because I feel like you can be the watcher and be present in your own space, but how do you do that, like when we're connecting, having a conversation? If I were to separate and be too much of a watcher, would I not be disengaging from this connection and conversation?
No, you're because you're both. You're I can feel that energy right now. The watcher is the aware of the bigger self essence. I can feel it right now. And I'm not identified with this Krista that's talking. So I'm actually coming from more like my soul,
right? So
versus my ego.
Well, it's like we're very much in the moment. We're being recorded, not being attached to maybe the fear of judgment of others, but we're feeling our energy inside of us. This isn't scripted. This is truly coming from the soul, and that is the form of being present. And that is that more what you're getting at, of like you can observe the whole thing, acknowledge the fears and anxiety, but not attach to them, so that you can just be here in this moment.
Yes, which is another chapter we're going to go to about we row our way home, of how we work with those two different energies. But
I just feel like that this podcast is helping us with that practice of being present.
This podcast, we are using this podcast for our own fucking bliss, because we are blissing out from this experience. And we were talking about, again, before we started, and I believe, to the best of my whatever level of self-deception I have, I do not care what anyone thinks about me, and that I'm really free. I'm actually free from that. And so, this podcast has helped me really disidentify with more of my form, like seeing myself or my mistakes or my facial or my aging. And I just can look upon this person that's speaking, and I can tell that I'm identifying with my soul and my heart, and I'm not identifying with my form. And it's so freeing. It's like, oh, the essence that is going to live on, right? That and it's having this human experience with all her little failings and figuring out and the good and the bad and the ugly.
To me, that just sounds like self-love in the purest form, right?
It's
not being in love with the ego form,
yes,
but being in love with the
true, authentic self-love,
broken.
and that's coming from the part of me that's learned to go, oh, that is how numinous love loves us, and that's now coming through me toward me. Because there is no separation between, even though I'm not you, I'm not other than you. So it's just, again, this oneness, coming back and back to this oneness. What if we didn't intensify them, tell ourselves a miserable story about them, but just got still on the inside and found a power source that's more interesting than anything on the outside of us? That's the great love affair, right? That's the great love affair. That would bounce us into the now, which is ever full of love and life and happiness. It's the greatest paradox there is. For this moment, nothing compares to the sacredness of my journey with the emptiness as well as the fullness. It's a powerful thing to embrace it all in inner stillness. Therein lies the peace.
And to me, I feel like what you were sharing there at the end, how it can be applied so easily, is when someone brings something up that is disturbing you, or these emotions are coming up, and going to the stillness and going to inquiry, going, why do you think of me that way? Or what may, go, instead of going to your emotional reaction, go into depth of connection and communication. And to me, that is the being in the moment, not being in your emotions.
Yeah, you're actually connecting to your heart and the other person, and to your intention to live in the infinity loop, as we call it. The awareness, so you're aware of your constricted awareness that is disturbed by whatever was said that could feel
disheartening.
Yeah, something is disturbing you. And then you go to the expanded awareness, right? You become the watcher of that. And now you have choices. You don't have to react, you can respond. Now you're outside of the reactive brain, right?
And you're choosing to connect.
And then you're going, and because you're in awareness, and then you use the inquiry, you use self-inquiry. Oh, what story am I telling myself that, again, I think I see 100%, but I only see 5%, right? Let's bring back Socrates again, we think we know. Let's bring back the Stoics. We think we know. We don't learn, because that's the ego. The ego doesn't question itself. If I heard Byron Katie just say a great thing. If you want to have a healthy, strong ego, keep that, don't question it. So by going to inquiry, we're going to question our ego mind that says, I know everything about what you just said, what your intention was, how you are separate from me and said it wrong and offended my scared little fragile identified self.
So in the infinity loop model, we are alpha men and women in an alpha brain state. We need access to our inner stillness. The alpha brain state is attributed to deep relaxation of body and mind, higher levels of creativity, improved problem solving, abilities, improved mood, stability of emotions, peak performance, and being in the zone or the flow state. Super learning and genius states, enhanced immune system, and healthy levels of serotonin. How will you bring these benefits to your remembrance when you want to run from your inner stillness and flail around? And to me, it's one of the most simple things of our Wim Hof practice. It's like anytime I'm not feeling 100% physically or emotionally, it's such a great tool to spend the time to do that exercise. And to me, it's what causes me to naturally go to that stillness, because I'm always, there's always this just sense of emptiness.
Because it's going to shut down, right? It's going to shut down the ego mind.
Every time I do it, it's like it's empty. And then even if I go back to that same thought, I'm able to go to it a little more slowly, I guess, and it doesn't feel as intense. Maybe it's flowing into me instead of being caught in me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that pain
you're
or
creating
anger.
the muscle memory. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's when we get angry, at least for myself, you feel it in your body and it gets tight. And when you do this breathing exercise, it leaves your body, and it maybe not leave forever, but when it comes back, it doesn't feel stuck. At least for me. And I think that is just going into that alpha brain state.
And I guess that's my sales pitch. This is me using my sales skills going, this is what it means to be in an alpha brain state. Look at all these benefits. Well, to be in that state, you have to be good at tolerating it. That is the stoic, the tolerating the blah, the discomfort, the whoa, what do I need? It's that sturdy warrior, right? Sturdy yet dissolving, that sturdy warrior that can just tolerate life on life's terms, and you're just feeling that. And that opens you up to a field of letting in genius and calm and insight and influence and flow.
In what ways do you run from the inner stillness out of fear of the emptiness and the blah feelings? I mean, before it was, I think my younger self didn't want to do anything that wasn't fun because it didn't make me happy. And I felt like if I wasn't happy, I was doing something wrong. Right? So I didn't want to take out the trash. Oh, I don't want to do the dishes. Oh, I don't want to clean, because those things aren't fun and exciting for me. Instead of
now you find all those things fun and exciting. Well, it's just the irony.
Well,
like
especially,
you love to wash dishes.
Especially when you're doing it for the bigger picture, right? I'm no longer doing it.
It's become part of your meditation.
I'm no longer doing it because I'm being told to do it or have to do it, but I'm doing it because I want to bless everyone else around me with a clean kitchen, or, be of service, because not only am I of service to others, but of service to myself, to not live in the filth. And I know how I'm not afraid of the blah anymore because of that.
One of the things for us to grieve over is the complication of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the iPhone and social media, and how it is affecting especially for children who are exposed to it, whose brains are still developing. And one of the gifts I was given was I always lived in nature as a child, and either in the mountains or near the beach, and walking. I mean, it was like, didn't look out the window, like I was in it. I was walking to the beach, I was in the water, I was walking barefoot, I was in the mountains, and the ability to just, like they'd say, play with a stick. That's almost all gone now. And there is something to grieve over some of what is happening in the world, and where do we I think stand for what choices do we have to make to protect?
I think of like how it used to be a 3-year-old was given the car keys to play with, to entertain them. Now they're given a whole iPad where they're watching a video forever and ever. And talk about numbing, they're no longer entertained or even using their hands to have some type of learning development, right?
Yeah.
While playing with the keys. Instead, they're just being numbed out and brainwashed by a message, because you don't want your kid to be loud in a restaurant, or and to me that's sad.
It's really interesting though. I mean, it's not like there's going to be amazing great things happening from education and everything, but it's just being mindful of, we have more ability to be distracted, to run from the ordinary and the blah, and that something to be very, very mindful, because one is going to build a spiritual muscle and build our alpha brain state, and one isn't. That's the argument I would make.
How will our tolerance of the emptiness create more calm, self-control, and emotional sobriety in us when we're in a room full of chaos and charged emotions?
That's when the alpha woman walks in the room and everyone knows she's going to be okay. She walks with this regal. I just think of the lioness. It's just this presence, this regalness that she can walk in, because she's created this inner stillness that can tolerate very uncomfortable emotions. The ego dies in the emptiness because it has nothing to do. It dies a good death.
Because it has nothing to judge.
It has nothing to judge, nothing to do. It goes, oh, there's something I'm other than this ego noise. I'm this space. Oh, I want to hang out in this spaciousness more, which is our essence, right? This is more interesting. Oh, this energy that's like doesn't have the ego mind chattering and everything, that's more interesting. It's just like walking meditation.
What practice would you like to implement that will help you live in the most aware, grounded, unshakable place, no matter what comes at you? To me, that's the breathing exercise. That's the accountability buddy. I mean, I think that's one of the best ways to stay grounded, is to have someone that you can truly share it all and have that accountability of, this is what I'm feeling, but I'm also letting it go. And sometimes having that space of being able to share those feelings is just a way of letting it go in itself, because you're not having to experience it by yourself, because no matter what you're going through, you're not going through it alone. I know so often we live right now, we're like in this epidemic of loneliness. And I think if I were to say one of my goals of this podcast is to teach that we aren't alone. No matter what you think you are, you're not. And how we communicate can even change that. You no longer are projecting, but you're connecting.
So that's an interesting thing to think about. What kind of things? I mean, I would say being in nature. I would say
like we like going in the ocean. That's definitely a big one for us.
Yeah, and I think becoming aware of this energy of the watcher that does not have the ego mind, that's just emptiness. To not run from the ordinary, and to just like lean. If you're gonna lean into something, lean into that. Lean into the ordinary, the blah, and see what bounces back up.
Wonderful. Self-compassion versus hatred. I imagine one of the reasons people cling to their hatred so stubbornly is because they sense once hate is gone, they will be forced to deal with pain. James Baldwin.
Yeah, and we were talking about that before the podcast, that it's a way we're medicating. It's right. It's a way we're medicating our pain with hatred. That it's an energy that we can feel, so we don't have to feel our pain and our powerlessness.
Yeah, I mean, from especially the internet hatred that you see so much out there, a lot of it I see as a tool of people kind of expressing their powerlessness in their own lives, and their unhappiness with who they are as a person.
Yeah.
And so they project it as hate onto others and judgment onto others on the internet. I mean, one of the most common one is they'll say something really mean to someone, and then that person responds, and then they go, oh, I didn't really mean it. I'm actually a huge fan and stuff like that. And then you go, well, then why are you spewing out hatred? And it's either wanting that attention or just their own self-hatred, I find.
Yeah,
You
there's
know?
self-hatred. I say when someone says something really horrible, or if they say it online, the person they're criticizing, that's not the person that looks bad. It's what's being said is really is what it doesn't look good on them. It's the lack of grace and skill that's said that deal that whatever you're saying, it's you're not they're not the one that looks bad. You look bad. I believe in the wisdom of our emotions and what they say about us, what needs to be paid attention to, and what we've pushed into the shadow. I don't explain the complexity of how to skillfully work around emotions. Carla McLaren is an excellent resource for that. I synthesize her wisdom with contemplation that helps us, quote unquote, transcend and include, as Ken Wilber says. And the word transcend in and of itself means to transcend the limitations of. So there's, wisdom in our emotions, and there's sometimes emotions that are being fed by what we're thinking, and then what we're thinking is feeding our emotions. And there's people have different beliefs, and you'll figure out I don't come with as though I'm an authority. I come with I'm an authority over my own experience, and I have experiences in my work, but I'll say this person believes this and this person believes that, and who knows in 5 years how we might all see it differently. But there's some wisdom in looking at emotions, and it may just be by that point how far we've lost our way and what our ego mind is telling us that we believe that fed into that emotions. I mean, there's learning with all of that, or what needs to be processed so we don't medicate our pain in hatred, right? We feel, what are we really feeling under that layer, under a layer? Oh, it's about us.
Well,
it's about us.
And well, like you said, there's usually layers to hatred of hate is the projected emotion, but there's so many layered emotions that have to occur before the hate is projected.
Yeah. And James Baldwin's so smart. I do believe I found a healthy way to work with our emotions without losing connection, awareness, and inquiry. We're able to let go of hate when we have self-compassion to handle our pain. Self-compassion does the work that hatred can never do. So what I'm saying, and came from my own experience of seeing, when I move to self-compassion, there's no place for hate. It's like that becomes the reflex, the other pedal you push on. You go, oh, what I need. You want to get out of hatred? Go to self-compassion for your powerlessness, for your own struggle, for your own whatever needs balm put on it.
So for in your own life, instead of having hatred towards maybe some of these men that have truly abused you, you have self-compassion for the decisions you made to allow them to. Is that a framework?
Yeah,
that
I
you
mean,
would put?
I'm to this day, I believe, and I don't think I didn't always have this, but I have it now, where I actually believe everything that happens to me, I believe personally, this is my own journey, I believe is my karma. Like when shit happens, I just go to inner stillness, and I'm like, this is my this is my journey, this is my karma. But I mean, some of the worst things ever happened to me were, well, I'd say from women too. But I would say, yeah, I mean, if you go to self-compassion, exactly, like say you're going through a horrible divorce and you go, he's doing this to the kids. Like if you go to self-compassion and go, oh, I'm hurting right now. Oh, I'm powerless. I'm powerless. I'm grieving. I can go to the gift of tears. I can weep. I can feel the loss, the grief, the lament, the confusion, I can feel all of that, and that is so sacred to the holy. Instead of going, I need to feel that this person is this doing this to me. It's like there is some other greater mystery and way of navigating. And that's the work with the family law stuff that I do, of helping people navigate through that very rough waters, which you gave me the great thing about, like, be like water, right? Of how you were able to,
Bruce Lee.
yeah, Bruce Lee, about flowing with all of that. But it's if you go to self-compassion when you feel hatred and you just go, oh, let me push on that pedal, that can do the work that needs to be done. James Baldwin's quote gives us compassion for why others behave so hateful at times. They're terrified of the pain that lies beneath. And, he was a Black social activist, so what he was having to face, so much amount of racism that he was having to face, and that he could have compassion for the hatred that was coming at him.
Well, from the documentary that I saw of his, where he talks about feeling bad for the racists, not feeling bad that they're being racist towards him, but understanding that that is a poison that they are eating, and by doing this, that's inside of them. And he believed that it was the rot of people's soul. He felt bad for them that they were racist towards him.
Yeah.
And that's very sad and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah. We know what that feels like because we've transmitted our pain onto others as well. Oof.
We're all guilty of it.
The red pouch, right? Self-compassion has been the game changer for myself and my clients. It creates awareness, boundaries, and truth in a powerful healing and transformation process for ourselves and our relationships. I've seen clients find the ability to change lifelong relationship patterns by speaking up from a place of self-compassion versus hatred. And the tools in this book, they practice speaking up until it becomes a strength. It's strong and gentle. Under all our pain for what is lost and the abuses we've endured from others' unconsciousness is our dire need for self-compassion. That self-love and self-care carry truth and wisdom that changes everything. It has a protective fire as it holds our hearts in love. Anytime we've been hurt, we have a choice to go to hate or self-compassion. Maybe we can hold both, but it's tricky, and often the hatred takes us away from the self-compassion that gives us what we need. I'm talking about pushing on the pedal of deep, reverent self-compassion that holds the grief, the lifelong pain, and gives us all we need in tender acknowledgement. It keeps us from having resentment and hard hearts and unforgiveness and reminding these stories we're going over about how this person wronged us, right? That's what it's about. It's this person did this and this person did this, and I can't believe this. Remind me of this. It's like, no. The self-compassion is the true heart-centered.
So I always talk about the snowballing effect of positive or negative choices. And what came up in my head just as you were talking about that was this snowball, like as if we are a snowball, but now what if we're picking up things that aren't snow? And then it really starts to disturb the whole shape of it, and it starts holding you down, right? You're
Picking
a
up
snowball,
like some freaking tree limbs.
exactly, and then it starts poking out at you, and now you are no longer a complete beautiful snowball, but you have a black rock in you. You have a charred limb. And it's this pain, and when you release that, you then become a smaller snowball again and are able to make healthier choices again.
You'd be more agile.
Yeah.
Oh, did you just come up with that?
It really just came through me as it,
Oh.
because I always talk about the snowball of it's a constant positive or negative. Our decisions are just rolling us in one direction. And to me, when you said that, that's just kind of what came up is the visualization of our emotions.
I
Coming
love
out of
it.
that.
Okay, I love it. Hatred creates a constriction in our bodies, which limits our awareness. Witness consciousness and emotional sobriety help us create awareness.
And when it limits our awareness, that limits our choices. So often I talk to people.
You don't have choices.
And when they're the most emotionally charged, I go, well, what are our options? And from my experience, they'll usually explain multiple options that they say aren't options, right? They know the solution is there, but they don't see it as an option because they're so triggered or activated.
And it is interesting. Eckhart Tolle talks about how the ego does love to suffer. So it likes pain because it feels that it's doing something. It's alive. It's significant. See, I'm struggling. So it is part of our ego little self that likes to live in the problems instead of the solutions.
It's the I'm hopelessness. It's the
victim.
Right. It's
how much the victim consciousness.
And now you don't have to have any action, right? If it's not your fault, if you're hopeless and there's nothing you can do, then there's no action for you to take. And to me, that's the ultimate ego winning. The
identification,
yeah.
Right? It's the ego. The ego's running the show, right? Hate may arise to get us to face what we've suppressed. That's an interesting point. There could be a moment.
Well, it's like we said, there's multiple emotions that are under hate, right? The hate isn't a base emotion, right? Hate isn't. There's multiple things that have layers that have to occur for you to reach hate, and to me, those hold a lot more truth.
It's almost like honoring your aversion. You go, whoa, that is rising up to me. I have been so false to go, I hate that. Yeah. And so, but it should move out of us. It's important to be aware of what set off the alarm in us now or may come from our past. Sometimes we become skilled at dissociating because our childhood coping that served us when it was too much for us to bear. That would be me. You just dissociate so you don't even feel what you should be. The alarm should be going off, and then you just stay in this terribly abusive situation because you've left your body. You don't even have the power to flee.
That's my issue with ketamine.
With ketamine, because it's dissociative. Yeah, there's some real shadow there's some real dangers we've seen with people with the ketamine. It's got to be.
I'm all for any tools that are helping people heal
from PTSD.
Too many times people are looking for a fix without the application,
without the integration,
right? So I said
integration.
If we really even had this magic pill that could heal all your pains and all your trauma, what would it really serve you if you don't have the tools? That pain and suffering is only going to come back because life is constant pain and suffering.
The integration.
And so it's about how do we have the integration and tools.
Yeah, so good. Acknowledging the strong emotion helps us to become into our bodies and get out of a dangerous or unhealthy situation. We may have developed hyper-empathy that feels empathy for the offender at the exclusion of what's healthy. Rage, which Carla McLaren would say boundaries with daggers, may also come up. See if you can move through hate, but it's very important to not rage at another person. That's where you go to the inner stillness. That's where you go to writing it out, right? We are not supposed to rage, at anybody. And
well, because then we've lost control. Then we are no longer being in the present. Then we are no longer being our loving, connecting self. We aren't communicating from connection, but we are communicating from projection when we rage on others.
See if you move through hatred and rage when you go to self-compassion. Compassion honors the truth. Hate isn't how we heal. It's dangerous to us and others if not worked with skillfully. Hatred isn't something we want to linger, nor do we send hate to others who have hurt us. Our world suffers because of what hate has done. We have almost worn hate as a badge. Like as though the self-righteousness that I'm good because I hate this politician or this person. I'm like, shit, I don't like to say I hate, and ooh, man, are you sure you want to be saying that?
Yeah, I mean, how many people are proud of the people they hate right
Yeah.
now because they say something that's mean to them. They hate them because it disturbed their peace.
But see, and the networks, and like, they make money by hate, because anything that is polarizing makes them more views, because that is how our brain sadly works. It gravitates more to even what ends up dividing us.
The hate and fear.
Yeah. Our world suffers. Okay, self-compassion gives us a connection to our truth, grounding, and wisdom to take care of ourselves. Self-compassion is the welcome, necessary reflex. We honor our discernment of what's toxic. We might need to remember what transpired, but we don't stroke or coddle the trauma or memory which isn't healthy and re-traumatizes us. Yeah, Martha Beck's really good about that. Like, you get to tell your story, but then there's a point where when you are coddling your story, or you telling your story again,
with the story,
you are re-traumatizing yourself.
Well, your brain doesn't know the difference between a memory and an experience. Mm-hmm. So if you aren't in a healthy space, sharing a memory of trauma only is re-traumatizing your whole your body starts, the cortisol levels spike. It's your body,
which is a very aging hormone. I mean, I can honestly say I there is a point where you forget it. That is the ultimate healing. It's like I don't even remember people's names. It's like it's just, the healing is so, you do the deep work, you sit with it, and then it's able to move on. Filling our bodies, minds, and hearts with hate to protect ourselves isn't necessary. If anger arises for us, let it drop down deep into our bellies and out of our chests, right? So this is like the constricted awareness, and you can go, okay, there's something I need to sit with, and I see it like a cannonball. Dropping deep in, and we can hold it here, right? It's not eating us alive. We're holding it, going, I feel something needs to be honored or protected right now. Anger, alert to anger's message in terms of what needs to be honored or protected. We then love ourselves. It's aversion without hate. That's discernment. We don't talk ourselves out of it. The person who offended us isn't less than us, and we're not separate, superior, and important. Compassion may arise in us for them and the human dilemma we all share. I have compassion they didn't choose better because of what's unconscious in them. I know I can be unconscious. We're able to keep our boundaries because in our self-compassion, we love ourselves enough not to be in harm's way. The anger doesn't linger beyond what serves a healthy process. Connected to our hearts, we fully feel them with the benefit of self-soothing. Sadness, grief, and anger are all appropriate. We have edges, but not hatred. If we allow hatred to fill our hearts, we lose our way and our self-control. Sometimes anger stays in there, and we need to go through an awareness process to learn, look at something, grieve, and prepare our hearts to let go. There are those who hold bitterness and resentment to their detriment. Forgiveness is letting go of revenge and all that holds something over someone. It's trusting things will take their course. The truth will come to the light. Hatred isn't justice. We'll know when we're ready to no longer protect someone's dangerous behavior. That means we may need to speak up. The pain we carry in our bodies, minds, and hearts is released. We may feel nothing. Forgiveness isn't forced on ourselves or another that would cause us to bypass the messages our emotions want to send us. Meaning there's lessons to be learned of why we gotten ourselves in that situation, right?
And forgiveness doesn't mean you let them back in your life.
That's
Forgiveness
very
is just
different. It's reconciliation.
you hold on, you don't hold on to the emotional trauma.
Yeah, there's some people that don't believe in forgiveness, and I don't live in that camp at all.
I don't believe you forgive people for them, you forgive people for you.
Yeah, and I do call it forgiveness.
Yeah, because if you don't forgive, you are holding on to that pain. And I know people that do that, and you see them as some of the most unhappy people because they're holding on to a pain from so long ago because they're unable to forgive.
Yeah, I think I will always argue forgiveness is a higher level. Forgiveness isn't forced. Okay, we don't do forgiveness to censor our painful emotions, seem spiritually enlightened, make others comfortable, or to not have to do the necessary work around what occurred.
Forgiveness is a form of self-love.
It is a form of self-love.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Even though forgiveness springs from the true self, we don't ignore what wants to arise, quote unquote, the ugly of the situation. When we see things from a whole perspective, we're able to forgive. It's a process and a choice. Some people would say it's not a choice. Teal Swan just said this, goes, it's not a choice. It's like when forgiveness happens, there is no choice. But I was thinking about that going, do I still believe what I said? And I think, yeah, because you're still choosing to almost step into the infinity loop. You're choosing to live in that reality that would make that forgiveness. I think when you have forgiven, you're not forgiven them again today and today. Like, oh, you got to forgive. I'm like, I think when you've forgiven somebody, for me, it's just, it's truly, I've forgiven them.
So the dual here, I think it's kind of like an athlete, where as they do all the practice for whatever sport it may be, they don't even think about catching and throwing the ball or kicking the ball or anything. It just happens naturally.
And
I would say that is kind of what it is. We're doing the tools to process the emotion,
the choice,
so that we can. And that's the choice.
That's the choice.
Is the practice.
The choice.
But because you've done the practice, the forgiveness will happen without your choice.
Yeah, I say it is like it is what it is. It's like the eagle vision. It's like you go at a higher level, and I will call it a higher level. Some people say a deeper level, but I see it as like this higher view, and you're like, oh yeah, well of course I forgive them. They know not what they do, like Jesus said. Just like I didn't know what I was doing. They Of course, it is as natural. Yeah.
Yeah. So we make the choice to do the practice, to have the tools. So when the time arises, we are able to forgive them without even choosing it.
And I guess the choice would be the intention of like choosing to love. Because I know there's people who they don't believe in forgiveness, and they are not forgiving people. And they talk about it's so hard to forgive someone. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. Love and healing are sent to them. We don't send them daggers, disgust, and contempt when we run into them, nor do we try to win and crush them. We speak truth from that place. Some believe forgiveness happens after we confront someone and they ask for our forgiveness. I can forgive without needing them to see it. They know not what they do. Reconciliation is another matter. I believe a whole view forgives all of life and all the humans involved. When we see from that level of awareness, forgiveness becomes what just is, as we were saying. We do the forgiveness process, I would say that's the choice, with elegance and intelligence that is real, profound, and rooted in truth. Forgiveness is something that comes easy to me. That is very true. Sadly, it has contained an unhealthy element of forgetting what was done to me almost instantaneously that kept me in harm's way. I call it faulty wiring from abuse that has now been rewired.
Right. It's the I'm so present and so transcended that I'm going to allow myself to continue to be abused. Right? I mean, that's I don't feel this pain because I'm not identifying with myself so much that you're neglecting yourself.
Yeah, and I was reconciling without any fruit that would say that their behavior had changed, or I was just forgiving them. Yeah, I was forgiving them in an unhealthy way. Right. Without doing the work that I needed to do. I was spiritually bypassing.
Because you weren't feeling your emotions.
Fully.
You were just tossing them. You were
was
almost ignoring
pain,
them. You were ignoring your emotions.
It was almost like medicating them. The missing piece would have kept me in my body and awake because it would have helped me feel fully, what you just said. I could have tolerated all the pain that feeling would entail because I can feel in the presence of compassion. With my anger that's grounded and not diffuse through my whole body, I could have set boundaries as the only sane option in those circumstances. Knowing how to dance the dance of self-compassion, anger, forgiveness, and emotional sobriety is one of the most beautiful dances there is. The ache in my heart is that you know that dance long before I did. In my life, it's hard for me to feel I need to forgive anyone because I don't know if I think these people did these things to me as much as I let them. Like somehow it was a part of my psyche that danced with them, except in early childhood abuse that taught me how to dissociate. I abandoned and betrayed Krista time and time again. If only I rose up and said, I understand you're in pain, blah, 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 but this is not okay. It has always been my invitation to my inner work. I never want to hate anybody. It feels awful to me and like bondage, but I need to love myself through self-compassion and allow anger to move me where I need to be. Loving the world and having a lot of empathy must not come at the cost of caring for our needs and living in integrity. When we forgive all of life for being what it is, when we surrender our hearts to be conformed to love, we're able to forgive and hate never takes hold of our hearts. We're left with beautiful self-compassion that becomes compassion for all those who suffer, even the offender. Every time what we went through with that person comes to our remembrance, we hold the necessary boundary if a change hasn't occurred on their part. No matter what, respond with deep and reverent self-compassion. We don't need to hate.
This rings up that podcast we listened again today of what you fight, you become. Oh. And to me, I would change it to what you hate, you become. Mm-hmm. And that's from what I notice is the people that claim to hate things present or project those things that they claim to hate more than anyone than usually the person they're claiming to hate. At least from my point of view, it's they go, that person's so whatever, and they're so unable to see how they are doing that exact thing in their life. That reminds me of
Byron Katie's great work that she does, Judge Your Neighbor, where it's like you turn the judgment that you have about someone else and you realize it's about you. Yeah. When do you do that? Oh no, that's about you doing it. And that really applies.
Well, someone said, I don't know who, but it remembers it's everything you hate about others is because it's in you. So the only reason you hate something in someone else is because it's in...
Right, you can see a disturbance in something that's not in you. But like if you hate, to have that kind of emotion, right, like a hatred,
because
because that emotion is arising so strong. That's an interesting thing to think about.
So here, let's go over our last few questions before we get to the end of the podcast here today. So describe the areas of your life where you can have more self-compassion. Is there someone that stirs up hatred? Write about it. I would write about it and also burn it. Get it out of your body.
And almost
then
ceremonially,
and set it on fire, because that's a way of kind of letting it go. And I think once you visually see how silly even the hatred is, when you write it down and visually see it, I think it will be a lot easier to let go. What are you aware of when you turn that around to self-compassion? What does your body feel like?
We were talking about that, and I think you feel the dissolving, because the energy of the hate is so tied to the ego identification, and the other is this space and this peace. But self-compassion is in the true self of it's like the true self loving the little wounded self.
Well, it's the bliss. It's the feeling of bliss. It's not happy, because you still might be feeling something else. But anger has this burning feeling inside of you. And to transcend that burning feeling to a blissful feeling is the goal, right? That's what happens when you move to self-compassion and inquiry, right? You can't be hating when you're asking questions. By acknowledging our shortcomings while not making excuses, what would a committed practice to only have self-compassion look like?
Yeah, and the self-compassion we were saying, you could have self-compassion that you're not better at loving people. You can have self-compassion that you blew it. I mean, it's not about you being all good and perfect. It's self-compassion for the human experience that you're struggling.
Yeah. Is there something or someone you're willing to forgive? Is there something or someone you're not willing to forgive? And if you were willing to forgive them, what would that look like? How would that change your life? I would say that you probably would be a little more blissful and a little more peaceful, just naturally in every aspect of your life.
Yeah, man, I love it.
Well, thank you again so much for joining us on this journey of the Infinity Loop group. Hopefully this brought some joy and enlightenment into your life. Please help share and like it, and thank you for joining us. Until next time.